3 days or 7 days? It sounds like an easy decision. A 3-day MSC cruise is cheaper, requires less vacation time, and lets you get on board, enjoy the ship, visit a port or two, and get home before you've even had time to miss your bed. A 7-day cruise, on the other hand, gives you more time at sea, more ports, more entertainment, and, at least on paper, more vacation for your money. But here's the problem. When you look at what actual MSC passengers say on Reddit, Cruise Critic, and cruise forums, the answer isn't nearly as obvious. Some cruisers absolutely love short MSC sailings. Others say 3 days is barely enough time to unpack before it's time to leave. And 7 days isn't automatically better either, because with MSC, the length of the cruise can actually change the experience you're getting. So if you're trying to decide between a 3-day and a 7-day MSC cruise, which one is actually worth your money? Let's break it down. Number 1. The biggest difference. You're not just buying days. The first mistake people make is comparing the price. Let's say you find a 3-night MSC cruise for a few $100s less than a 7-night sailing. It can be tempting to think, why pay more when I can get almost the same experience for less? But cruise pricing doesn't work that simply. A large part of what you're paying for is the ship itself, your cabin, the dining rooms, the entertainment, the pools, the lounges, the shows, and all the attractions on board. That means a 7-night cruise gives you considerably more time to actually use what you've paid for. Cruise Critic contributor Aaron Saunders recently wrote about taking several 3-day cruises, including one on MSC Magnifica. His conclusion was interesting. Short cruises can offer essentially the same onboard quality as longer sailings, while requiring less time and money. But there's another side to that. If your main reason for booking MSC is the ship itself, 3 days can feel extremely short. You may board in the afternoon, spend your first evening figuring out the ship, have 1 or 2 full days, and suddenly you're packing your bags again. And that matters even more on MSC's larger ships. Because these ships can have restaurants, pools, lounges, entertainment venues, water attractions, sports facilities, shopping areas, and other features that you simply cannot experience properly in 3 nights. So the first question isn't, which cruise is cheaper? It's, why am I cruising? Number 2. When the 3-day MSC cruise actually makes sense. There is one major advantage to the short cruise: convenience. And this is where 3-day cruises can be surprisingly powerful. You don't need to take an entire week off work. You don't have to spend 7 days away from home. And depending on where you live, you may be able to turn a 3-night cruise into a long weekend. Cruise Critic's recent look at short cruises specifically highlights this advantage. 3-day sailings can fit around a Friday to Monday schedule and make it easier to take a cruise without committing an entire week of vacation. For someone with limited vacation time, that can make a huge difference. And there's another reason to choose 3 days. You're testing MSC. Maybe you've never sailed with MSC before. You've heard the mixed reviews. You've seen people online calling MSC an incredible value. And you've seen others complaining about food, service, or organization. So why commit to 7 days before knowing whether you even like the cruise line? A short sailing can work as a test drive. In fact, cruise enthusiasts frequently describe short cruises as a good way to try a new ship or cruise line without committing the time and money required for a longer vacation. And if you love it, great! Now you know what to book next time. But there's a catch. Number 3. 3 days can feel very different from 7. This is probably the biggest warning when it comes to short MSC cruises. The atmosphere can change. One discussion from the MSC Cruises subreddit compared 2- and 3-night sailings with 7-night cruises. Passengers described some short weekend cruises as having much more of a party atmosphere. One experienced MSC cruiser said their 3-night sailing felt like a booze cruise, while the longer cruises felt more relaxed. Now, that doesn't mean every 3-day MSC cruise is going to turn into a floating nightclub. It depends heavily on the departure port, itinerary, season, and passenger mix. But it does reveal something important. A short weekend cruise isn't necessarily just a compressed version of a 7-day cruise. The demographic and atmosphere can be different. People booking a 3-night getaway may be treating the cruise as a quick party weekend. People booking 7 nights may be looking for a traditional vacation. So if you're traveling with children, looking for relaxation, or simply want a quieter experience, don't assume a short cruise will automatically be better because it's cheaper. Number 4. 7 days gives you something 3 days can't. Time. This is where the 7-day cruise starts pulling ahead. Time. Not just time on board. Time to settle in. Time to explore the ship. Time to enjoy a sea day without feeling like you're wasting precious vacation time. Time to visit multiple ports. And time to recover if one day doesn't go according to plan. That's especially important because cruises don't always go perfectly. Maybe the weather changes. Maybe a port call gets disrupted. Maybe you're tired after an excursion. Maybe you spend half a day just relaxing by the pool. On a 3-day cruise, losing several hours can feel like losing a huge percentage of your vacation. On a 7-day cruise, you have room to breathe. And that's one reason many experienced cruisers still prefer a week or longer. A recent cruise enthusiast discussion about first cruises made the same general argument. 7 nights provides enough time to experience the ship and cruising itself rather than feeling like you've barely started before it's over. And that matters with MSC, because the ship can be a destination in itself. Number 5. What about ports? This is another major advantage of 7 days. A 3-night itinerary may give you only a limited number of destinations. A 7-night itinerary can potentially give you a much broader itinerary, with more ports or additional sea days depending on the route. And that changes the value equation. Imagine you're traveling to the Caribbean. With a short cruise, you might visit one destination and spend the rest of your time on board. With a 7-night itinerary, you could potentially experience several different ports, plus a private island day depending on the route. And that creates another advantage. You're not putting all your vacation value into the ship, you're getting the destinations too. But here's the important part. Don't automatically assume a 7-day itinerary is better because it visits more ports. Sometimes a 7-day itinerary can actually feel exhausting. 3 or 4 consecutive port days can mean waking up early, getting off the ship, taking an excursion, walking around all day, returning to the ship exhausted, eating dinner, and doing it again the next morning. That's not necessarily relaxing. So if your idea of a cruise is, give me a beach chair and don't make me move, then the number of ports isn't necessarily the most important factor. Number 6. The money question is more complicated than it looks. Now let's talk about the part that probably matters most: value. A 7-day cruise will almost always have a higher total price than a 3-day cruise. That's obvious. But the price per night can be much more favorable on a longer sailing. And then you have the costs outside the cruise fare: flights, hotels, transportation to the port, parking, excursions, drink packages, Wi-Fi, specialty dining, and other extras. This is where a 3-day cruise can become surprisingly expensive on a per-day basis. Imagine you need to fly to the departure port. You're paying for the same airfare whether you're cruising 3 days or 7. You may also need a hotel before the cruise. Again, that's the same fixed cost. So the shorter cruise isn't necessarily half the cost of the longer cruise. You're simply spreading those fixed travel expenses across fewer vacation days. That's why someone flying a long distance to reach an MSC port may get much better overall value from 7 days. But if you live close to the port, that's a different story. If you can drive to the terminal and avoid hotels and airfare, a 3-night cruise becomes much more attractive. Number 7. Here's where MSC's mixed reviews matter. Now we get to something you shouldn't ignore. MSC has a very mixed reputation among online cruisers. Cruise Critic currently lists thousands of MSC passenger reviews, with experiences ranging from highly positive to extremely negative. And Reddit is equally divided. Some passengers describe MSC as an excellent value. One recent 7-night MSC passenger reported paying only around $320 for an inside cabin and said the value was hard to beat. Another cruiser said they went into their MSC cruise expecting an average experience after reading negative comments online, but ended up enjoying the trip and felt MSC offered very good value compared with more expensive cruise lines. But there are also plenty of negative reports. Food quality, service delays, crowding, organization, and expectations not matching reality. Recent Cruise Critic reviews show just how wide that gap can be, with some passengers praising their MSC experiences while others describe serious disappointments. And this leads to an important conclusion. A 3-day cruise can be a great way to minimize your risk. If you're worried that MSC isn't for you, 3 nights limits your exposure. But if you already know you enjoy MSC, 7 nights gives you far more opportunity to get your money's worth. Number 8. Which one is better for first-time MSC cruisers? If this is your first ever MSC cruise, I'd look at it this way. If you're nervous about MSC, go short. 3 nights is enough to get a taste of the ship, the service, the dining, the entertainment, and the overall atmosphere. You don't have to commit your entire vacation. But if you're already comfortable with cruising, or you've sailed MSC before, I'd lean towards 7 nights. Because now you're not testing the product, you're actually taking a vacation. and that extra time gives you the opportunity to experience the ship properly. Number 9. Which one is better for families? For families, 7 days usually makes more sense. Why? Because traveling with children takes time. Embarkation takes time. Finding your cabin takes time. Getting everyone organized takes time. And by the time everyone settles into the routine, your 3-night cruise can already be halfway over. 7 nights gives families more flexibility. You can have a lazy morning, spend an afternoon at the pool, take a shore excursion, stay on board for a sea day, and you don't feel like every single hour has to be maximized. However, if you're looking for a quick family getaway during a school break or long weekend, a 3-night sailing can still be a fantastic option. Number 10. The surprising case for 3 days. Here's something that doesn't get talked about enough. 3 days can actually make you enjoy the cruise more. Why? Because you're forced to focus. You don't have time to overplan everything. You don't feel pressure to experience every restaurant, every show, every activity, and every port. You board, you enjoy yourself, and then you go home. For someone who simply wants a quick reset, that can be exactly what a vacation should be. And recent cruise coverage makes the same point. Short cruises can pack entertainment and onboard experiences into a very compact schedule. So don't think of a 3-day cruise as a bad 7-day cruise. Think of it as a completely different product. It's a getaway. A 7-day cruise is more of a vacation. So, which one is actually worth it? Let's make this simple. Choose the 3-day MSC Cruise if you have limited vacation time, you live relatively close to the departure port, you want a quick getaway, you're testing MSC for the first time, you found an unusually good fare, or you simply don't want to commit an entire week. But choose the 7-day MSC Cruise if you're flying to the port, you want multiple destinations, you want enough time to explore the ship, you're traveling with family, you already know you like cruising, or you want a genuine vacation rather than a weekend escape. And there's one more thing. If the price difference between the 3-day and 7-day cruise is relatively small after you factor in airfare, hotels, transportation, and extras, take the 7-day cruise. That's where the longer sailing can become the obvious winner. So is a 3-day MSC cruise worth it? Absolutely, but only if you understand what you're buying. You're buying convenience. You're buying a quick escape. You're buying a test drive of MSC, and you're accepting that the cruise may feel rushed. A 7-day MSC cruise costs more up front, but it gives you something that money can't completely replace: time. Time to slow down, time to explore the ship, time to enjoy the destinations, and time to actually feel like you're on vacation. So if I had to choose between the two for a full vacation, I'd take the 7-day MSC cruise. But if I only had a long weekend, or I wasn't sure whether MSC was right for me, the 3-day cruise could actually be the smarter choice. Because the best MSC cruise isn't necessarily the longest one. It's the one that fits the way you actually want to travel and the amount you're willing to spend. But there's another decision that can make an even bigger difference to what you pay. When should you actually book your MSC cruise? Should you reserve months in advance and lock in your cabin early? Or should you wait until the last minute and hope MSC drops the price? The answer isn't as simple as early is always better or last minute is always cheaper. So if you're planning an MSC cruise, make sure you watch our next video, MSC Cruise Deals, early booking or last minute. We'll break down when booking early can make sense, when waiting might pay off, and what you should consider before choosing either strategy. Because finding the right cruise is only half the battle. The timing of your booking could determine how much you actually pay. Happy cruising!